Hello and welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Alexandra.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and we're podcasting experts. We just did 100 episodes. It's 100 episodes, baby. It's 100th episode. That's wild.
And it's crazy that we have gotten this far. So as we've always done, we are issuing a challenge. Each week you sit down and write a complete...
the intro. No, keep going.
Oh, yeah. Each week we sit down and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
Then we come on the podcast, we read the story, we talk about what we learned in writing it, and then we talk about stories sent in by you wonderful listeners.
Hey! It's 100 episodes of Do the Right Thing.
Episode of Do the Right Thing. Yeah,
you're welcome.
We're actual experts, right? It's that thing where it's like you do something for 10,000 hours and you're a master at it. Well, you did 100 episodes, and each of them is like 1 to 2 hours. So that's like about
200 hours.
And if you round up, that's 10,000. So. Yeah, hell yeah, we're experts. Fuck yeah.
I know. Honestly, I'm waiting for our PhD. I'm waiting for our Guinness World Record. Like, where is our recognition out here?
Yeah, I'm still upset you didn't get your Guinness World Record thingy.
Well, actually, we are still trying.
But surely someone's beat y'all by now.
No,
it's been 3 years.
No one would ever sit down and talk about anything for 58 hours.
For those who didn't hear about it the last time we talked about this, which is a while ago, Jarvis and some of his friends beat the world record for longest continual podcast, or was it live stream? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was the longest continual podcast without any dead air longer than 5 seconds.
Damn.
And yeah, I mean, it was a really great 3 days that we did this, but the issue was that we weren't able to get all of the footage along with just all of the other sort of like paperwork that it took to submit it. So we did it, but Guinness never got back to us.
Those bastards.
Yeah, well, I mean, they wanted us to pay $600 for it to be processed that week. And if we didn't pay that, which we didn't, they said that the earliest they could do would be 6 to 8 months. And that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to follow through on that, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We should go and find Mr. Guinness and teach him a lesson. I'm cracking my knuckles.
We should just do it. Like, why don't we just start from ground up?
It's just
58 hours of speaking. I think we can honestly do it.
You should just go all out and just smash that record. Just go 4 days, and then what? You'll at least hold the record for another 4 days, right? So
true, yeah.
And that's pretty meaningful. Do you ever think about all those people that like did a record, but like it's been beaten, and they were like in the middle, you know, like. They weren't the ones who set the record, and they weren't, like, the biggest leap, you know?
Oh, true,
and they're just forgotten.
Yeah. So, like, there were one in the middle where no one's going to ever remember them. That's kind of sad, you know? Because you never know.
Yeah. Pretty messed up.
I know.
Forgotten.
But back on this fantastic...
sand in the wind.
Back on this fantastic episode, both of us brought our revised and re-edited stories this week. So I want to ask you a quick question before we roll on into it. What was the hardest part about stepping back 2 years to work on something?
Yeah, so, also, which one of us is going first? Do we...
I mean, I can go first.
Okay, normally. I think it is tradition. It's been a while since we had 2 stories where we each did our stories, but for me, it was very much like, well, I'm still very depressed right now, and so going back and editing this very emotional story, I ended up holding myself at a distance from it, I think, and I did some minor improvements. I cleaned up like the worst offenses from my original writing of it. But I didn't change it that much fundamentally.
I feel that. So you weren't able to really like delve in deep and sort of reinvent it.
Yeah, not this time. I think y'all will still very much enjoy it for those who haven't already read it. Just because I think it's a good story.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, no, I didn't do any big revolutions in it this time, unfortunately. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I wanted to go back and work on my first Do the Right Thing story, and I find it so hard when it comes to, like, working on old stuff to, like, get back in that headspace, you know, sort of figure out why I wanted to write it, and then sort of go from there. And I mean, stepping back 2 years, I was a completely different person, right? So yeah, I think honestly the hardest part was just that looking at the old story, I was kind of uninspired with what was there. So I had to basically take that and make it something that I would not only enjoy writing, but also take it in a new direction that I think lends itself to being a lot better of a story, you know, because, you know, I focused on a character this time versus then when I was more so focusing on the situation. So
yeah, well, I think your story is pretty significantly changed actually, in a lot of positive ways. So I am looking forward to talk about that. So yeah, let's just get into it.
Sure thing. Let's roll on in. So the title of this one is Gaia's Grasp. Word of advice from a man who's severely whipped. If your partner starts complaining about how you don't bring in any money and smell up their apartment, chances are they'll break up with you well before you fix any of that. But I'm whipped and absolutely love that girl. Yet I have no work experience. Not good at school. Can't nab my dream job without work experience. Miss the Bitcoin bubble. And honestly don't have enough money to not split any dinner bill. Which means I'm broke, single, have no job prospects, and pining for a girl I could never make happy. So, I'm an Uber Eats driver. Well, rider. I ride a bike. It gets me round, and thanks to COVID, not a single soul would dare venture out for their Popeyes. To flex a bit more, I am one of 3 drivers our small town has, which means I'm making more than a real job. On most days, I do like 6 to 7 rides. But there was this one interesting day where the requests were doubled. I hopped into a group chat me and the other drivers set up to see that they'd been both offline for a few days. That same morning, Amber, my non-ex, we're in a weird place right now, actually responded to my text after a few weeks or so of ghosting. The previous night, I flexed a bit on Snapchat sporting the new Air Jordan XXXVs, and that pseudo-clout must have reeled her back in. She had a lot of excuses about why she hasn't contacted me yet, but ended by telling me to take her to dinner later. I gladly agreed and got ready for the day with an ignorant glee all over my face. It was looking to be a great day, a dinner date later, and a busy money-making day all around. What more could I hope for? For the most part, I had the nitty-gritty of the job memorized. Most of the orders were repeat offenders, so there was no GPS required. If an order was pretty far, I'd send them a text letting them know I got them covered. But on that day, I got a request to deliver Mama Ty's Thai food to Quincy Manor. When my family moved here, the first thing we noticed was Quincy Manor. It was just so out of place. In Texas, we don't get many gaudy sights. And if you were to spot one, chances are it's an old plantation. But Quincy Manor, along with the family, apparently were an integral part of the Underground Railroad. Up until the end of the Civil War, when all those angry white folk stormed the manor and drug out the Quincy family for a good old picnic. Since then, the hill it stood on, the trimmed garden, and her Ionic columns rotted away as their name was forgotten. I say this to introduce the urban legend of Quincy Forest, which I doubt I need to explain too much. Like any creepypasta made before they became a joke itself, Quincy Forest was known for being spooky and scary and filled with screams and shadows. Meaning, local middle school students pranked each other out in those woods, and high school students used it as their own little smoke spot. Still, grandmas to old kooks tell stories of the 1,000 spirits that must reside in those woods. How you'd hear the clank of old slave shackles and fearful whispers in the night. But, without fail, they'd all speak of a hidden treasure in Quincy Manor's garden. Rolling up to the manor, I heard nothing but a bird's song. Guess spirits don't talk mid-evening. It was obvious no one kept up the road. When I was a kid, this thin gravel path would be smooth and fine like a sandy beach. Since then, nature took it for a ride. Vines laced the path that now had grass and tiny water channels streaming through it. Nothing a bike can't handle, but if I was delivering the food to someone, you'd think at least the road to the place would be hospitable. The front gate was basically a rusted heap of metal, somehow still connected to the concrete fences that surround the property. As I rode past it, I was hit with a thick air, muggy, as if the spit of Texan wealth was somehow smack dab in a bayou. I had never seen the manor up close, and damn, did it look like a plantation. Large oaks lined the path leading to wooden stairs and connected ground to a patio. The patio was wide and surrounded the base of the house with about 20 feet of leisure area. The base of the second floor jutted out over it, making a sort of awning, and was connected by 6 thick wood pillars on each side. Surprisingly, there wasn't too many windows besides 2 at the base and 1 circular one that peered into the attic. In its prime, it would have been nice. But what I can only guess was a beige-white manor years ago was dingy brown, mold green, and covered in dirt, vine, bile, nests, and all other manners of grotesque nature. I stopped by a bird feeder out front, strangely placed in the middle of the path, but was so unimpressive it had to have been a mistake. At that moment, I assumed it must have all been a prank. Obviously, no one lived here, but I got paid. So it must have been the other courier pulling a fast one, maybe to steal my rides or something. Wasn't sure what to think. Decided to relax by the bird bath until someone gave me the actual address over the app. Then I saw something moving from within the forest. It wasn't a shadow or a person even, but some figure low to the ground that slithered through trees like a viper on the prowl. Then it made it to the light, and it was a vine. An olive green stretch of plant matter that moved with a mind of its own. In any other case, I would have ran, but I was high. How else am I supposed to make it through the day? And just watched as the vine moved towards me, around my legs, and into the bird bath. It wafted about the bog water for a while, like a hand fiddling for a phone. Finally, it fished out a disgustingly old business card that read, "Drink from my waters of fortune, and wish for that you could never have, Mother Gaia." So, of course, I did as the vine said. Because nothing this strange has ever happened to me, and why the fuck not? I trust nature, and why would someone named Mother Gaia lie to me? So I dipped my hand into the black water and brought a handful to my lips. Surprisingly enough, the water was crisp and fresh. Then I took my hand away from my mouth, and within my palm was a small vial of emerald green liquid. In my heart of hearts, I wished for that damn girl to love me. You know, me, not what I could do for her. I got this job, because of her. Hang on to whatever text she sends me like it's the word of God. All for a pretty face and someone to laugh at my jokes. A better wish would have been to get rid of these feelings. But hey, as I said, I was whipped. Somehow that vial would do exactly that. At least that's what I figured. Either would make her less shallow or give me millions. Let her truly see how much I love her or make me everything she wanted. A love potion or a gateway to $1 million felt like a win-win to me. Without thinking, I had already drank the liquid. It was sweet, like a pink lemonade, only more viscous. After its contents were empty, the vial shattered to a liquid-like glass, and the vine dipped into the waters once again. This time, the vine fished out a eggshell white, clean business card. Thank you for visiting Gaia's garden. Any side effects to one's wish will be final. There is no reverting a wish, or wishing again for a conflicting wish. I will keep my eye on you, and please remember to recycle. Mother Gaia.
A fantastic story, Jarvis, and it really is.
Thank you.
It's so hugely improved from the original. In fact, what we should do, we should link the originals in the description, just so they're there. Although I will say, I think only yours is worth like reading for the comparison. But no, the change from the old one to this new one is like astonishing. So in Jarvis's original story. What was it? It was a delivery bicyclist as well.
Yeah.
Went up to a castle and then got eaten by Gaia, basically.
Out of nowhere.
But this is so much more, right? You set up this immense internal conflict of this guy and this girl that like doesn't appreciate him or whatever, but also like he's not like he's not doing like a crazy amount, like he's working, but he's not like
going overboard.
Yeah, I mean he's doing delivery while blazed, so it's like this can't be that bad, you know what I mean? So
he is living a good life by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and then he goes and gets this blessing thing, and I'm imagining that this is like some kind of monkey's paw at the very least, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Although I think we don't know how it's going to turn out, right? There's not like a secret hint in there.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely like one part that I will want to work on more because I do see this as the beginning to a very long day. To where like after he takes this, either he gets rich, either it's a love potion, either people are attracted to him. Either way, of course, when you fucking get anything from some sort of vine in a forest in a dirty bird bath, of course something bad is going to happen. But I think the biggest thing that I wanted to change going from the first one to this version is to actually create a character, to have him have some sort of driving force as to why he is out, giving people food. And yeah, I think that's why I really spend so much time in the beginning, just sort of letting his voice flow and just sort of allowing him to show us this world and these other people through his eyes, so that as soon as we get to the end, we are sort of left wondering, well, how is it going to turn out? So.
Yeah, I think it definitely does feel a bit like incomplete, and there is something about having your main character devoured by vines right at the end that does have a sense of finality and completeness that this version of the story doesn't. But
I will say this much: if I were to work on this more. That happening is not completely out of the question.
Yeah, that'd be fair, so long as there's some sort of, karmic justice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it could certainly be the right way to end the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I feel like having the just comeuppance is definitely the way to go. But I really do want to emphasize how much of a change it is. Like, there's still that same sort of conversational tone that you had in the original, or it's not even colloquial. Just
it's just kind of lax. It's So I tried to make it, I know then and a now, to where it doesn't read like normal prose. It reads like someone is basically talking to you or telling you this storytelling, but not in the typical fashion, So I guess it is a mixture of that. It's a mixture of it being very colloquial and just, I don't know.
It's very much infused with character voice, at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I think that is definitely the biggest thing that I try to sort of carry over. But again, I mean, as I looked at the first version, granted, the first version was very like bare bones, basic, and short. So I wanted to sort of take the spirit of what I was trying to go for there and put it into a piece that will probably end up longer, to where, I can set up that sort of tension. I can set up that character, and yeah, I think that's definitely what the driving force for this current version is. And I also like how I did change this sort of Gaia just from being a monster to more so of a spirit, right? So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really did love the sort of process of going back and working on this. I think it is really great to sort of see how far I have came. I went from being able to make some sort of story to being a lot more confident within my craft.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the greater focus on character work and, like, writing what and things like that, I think that has really, really served you well.
Definitely. I don't know what else I could say about this.
Well, we can just reflect on the past literal 2 fucking years of doing a podcast. So yeah, if you have any thoughts about the past good long while.
I mean, honestly, I know when I first started, like when we first started Do the Right Thing, this being our first story, I just know how sort of worried and really timid I was to not only be writing, but to show other people. And I mean, over time, I have seen my own personal confidence also grow with the confidence that I put on the page. And I do think that that does show not only within my prose, but also within the sort of ambitious things that I've done in the past. I think Do the Right Thing has been the perfect place to try something new, to try out new shit, to try out new voices, to try out new sort of arcs and characters. So I mean, honestly, even though we have done this for 2 whole years, every time I do it, if I still have the same glee as I did the very first time, which I'm really happy about that. It is staying fresh, which is good.
Absolutely. Well, on trying new characters, I'm now remembering an early challenge I gave you that I don't know if you ever carried out. Have you, and if you haven't, will you finally write a cheerleader? Please, just write a cheerleader, because it's so different from your normal voice. That was why. Did you?
Yeah, well, okay. It wasn't a normal cheerleader though. It was the one where she was being interrogated for a murder. I think.
Yeah.
So she wasn't doing her normal cheerleader thing.
She wasn't a cheerful cheerleader, which is the whole point.
Cheerleader. Yeah. I think going forward, I would love to try my hand at a lot more upbeat and light stuff. Like, I mean, one of my favorite things that I have written is the story about the kid being locked in his girlfriend's basement. Mm-hmm. And I mean, almost in every version that has sort of kept a sort of comical tone to it. So I would just like to, in the future, maybe write a story about a cheerleader that is funny. That would be nice to sort of completely step out of my sort of self serious
I think so.
/ pissed off character. So
sure. And you could also, there's some other ones you could write, like a strict teacher, that is very formal, like British. Just
but can I do formal? I don't know.
I think you can. It's worth a shot.
Maybe. I just love the usage of slang and just words.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
and, how it sort of works within how normal people speak. I don't know.
Like fancy formal people have slang too. They just put it in the dictionary. Like
true.
They just know the dictionarians and they put it in there. So
I get it. Honestly, I think one of the biggest things that has been sort of holding me back when it comes to the diction that I use on Do the Right Thing is that I normally only use words that I know I can say very clearly.
Sure.
So I think my own personal challenge going into a possible another 100 episodes of this show is that if I decide to sort of upgrade my diction, I will be able to flow better when I do speak. So,
sure.
Maybe. We'll see.
Worth thinking about. Absolutely. And I guess we'll also leave some more double reflection when we both read our stories after mine. So,
exactly.
Anything else you want to talk about yours before we head into mine?
No, I think mine's pretty basic, pretty plain, but I am excited to read about the Toy Maker.
The Toy Maker flashed the curtains apart, letting in the bright sun. Warm, golden rays filtered in through streaked windows and danced amongst the dust in the air. The Toy Maker set to work, opening drawer after cluttered drawer, listening to their knocks as they opened. He peered down his half-rimmed glasses to the bolts of fabric within. Eyes flitted over the deep sea of reds in one drawer, lingering on a dark burgundy silk, over to the bright cardinal linen decorated with piercing blue flowers. His gaze roved as his hand did, running over a soft lilac cotton weave. The fabric prickled his skin where it caught on his deeper calluses. The Toy Maker shut his eyes and thought of his little girl. She had been a rambunctious toddler and was even more adventurous at 7. He recalled the times she'd insisted on playing outside with her stuffed duck. She called him the captain and took him outside at nearly every time it rained. It had been made of felt, and the continual wet weakened the glue. Then, when they went camping, traipsing through a forest, it had gotten dirty and ragged, tugged at by branches as she marched along, careless. And then the poor little duck's coat ripped. She was inconsolable until they went home and he fixed up the doll, this time with little aluminium armor to keep him extra safe. No, the Toy Maker shook his head. This one would have to be made of sterner stuff. He stroked his unkempt, long, silvery gray beard, hand hovering over the collection. He made a selection, a woolen bolt of dark magenta, dappled with textured four-pointed stars. Fuzzy curls tickled his palm as he picked it up. He smiled, thinking of the night they had spent together with the telescope, cataloging the planets and pointing out constellations. The week after, she drew the Man in the Moon, and for weeks and weeks invented stories involving spaceships and aliens and kind folk that lived on asteroids. Ignoring the pricks in his fingers, he stretched the star-speckled material between his hands and found it steadfast. Yes, he thought, this would do. Returning to his workbench, the toymaker spread the cloth. This was his canvas. What kind of doll would he make this one? He visualized the options as they came to mind. He could create a friendly octopus, or a cavalier rabbit, a lively old turtle, perhaps a teddy bear? She'd never failed to adore them, and it had been a while since the toymaker had made one for her. He envisioned her reaction, saw her in his mind's eye, seeing the stars and calling it a space bear, including him in all those stories she babbled on about. He chuckled a little, imagining her playing with it, and felt a pang in his chest. Then he returned to his work, his expression composed again. The shears glided like silver ships on an indigo ocean. First, he cut out the template for each part: limbs, body, head, and the little ears. Once upon a time, he'd used pre-drawn templates for the job. But then the first time he tried to make a toy without the raid was a disaster. It had been a toy soldier, or it was supposed to have been a soldier. It turned out more like Frankenstein's monster, with odd lumps and mismatched arms, even though he had used rulers. He'd hesitated to give it to his little girl, so he'd left it lying in the shop. Just as he decided to scrap it, she'd come running to him and given him a hug. She'd found it while exploring, and ended up loving it just as much as any of the others. But that had been a long time ago. These cuts were perfect, the rulers set aside. Venturing back to the fabrics, he picked out the cloth that would form the undersides of the paws, the nose, and the ears. A nice plain lavender wool would work nicely. Then he picked out the stitching thread. He'd long learned that if he didn't match the color to the fabric, she'd pull them apart absently. Squinting down his glasses, he patiently threaded the magenta string through the eye of a polished needle and tied it off. With practiced motion, the toy maker pushed the needle through the cloth, drew it to the other side, before tugging up and out. Up the stitches went, hugging the fabric together until he snipped off the excess. All the stitching was completed but for one foot. Delicately, the toy makers took the stuffing out of a jar and poked it with a stick all the way through. The stick made it so he could reach all the way to the back without tearing the stitches with his two large hands. He worked in silence, the world outside his shop forgotten. Noiseless but for the whispers of thread and the old grandfather clock above his head tick-tocking slowly. He focused wholly on his work, stitch after stitch. He followed by sewing silver thread in round lines to be the bear's toes. The head, as always, was tricky, requiring those round ears and a big, soft nose. Then the body. He cut it to be rotund, as she liked it. They were the best cuddlers, she would say. He stuffed the bear, the space bear's belly, nice and full with only a bit of give. After sewing it, he gave it a squish to test. There was resistance, and a strain vibrated through the fabric. He shook his head. Not squishy enough. He undid some of his work, pulled out some stuffing, and sewed it closed again. The bear passed the second squish test. The toy maker fastened each part in its proper place. He gently moved them with his fingers, making sure they could be manipulated easily. She'd once complained that a detective he'd made her had been far too stiff, hadn't even been able to raise his magnifying glass to his eye. He'd simply had to fix it. He smiled, remembering why she'd asked for a detective. There'd been a terrible crime in the doll kingdom, she told him. The princess's tiara was missing, and she needed someone to help her with the case. He'd made the bear with magnifying glass and tweed jacket, and they'd spent the whole day searching and questioning witnesses. It was all fun, but she really had been upset about losing the little crown. Eventually, he made an excuse for a break and gone to his workshop. The look on her face when she saw her little trickster fox hiding under the stairs wearing the tiara. The toy maker brushed off a droplet that had settled on the cloth. Now came the most important part. The toy maker walked to a cabinet and pulled out drawer after drawer. He perused a plethora of buttons, googlies, dots, beads, and craft eyes. This one needed to be sturdy. He spotted a pair of metallic bronze buttons, big and expressive. With a trained hand, he sewed them in place, and he took a step back. Perfect, the toy maker thought, gazing in the bear's eyes. More silver thread formed its eyebrows. Now, it only needed to be able to speak. He added a slight curve to the mouth, not an overt smile, but suggestive of one. In this way, his little girl would have been able to interpret the bear as having any expression she wanted it to have. He held the bear at arm's length. He could imagine her clutching it to her chest, with both arms as when she got scared. Could see her holding it as high above her as she could, picturing her little space bear on distant worlds, far from here, playing with all the other toys he'd made her over the years. He could almost hear her voice, talking to it. What personality would she have given it, the toymaker thought? What name? His heart hurt, and he blinked hard. He held the bear close for a moment. Then the toymaker put his tools away, each in its place. He shut the drawers, closed the cases, stopped the jars. The cloth was rolled up again and placed with the rest. The stools were pushed in. The thread was spooled and the needles put away in their boxes. Finally, the toymaker pulled the curtains closed, walked out of the dusty old room, and with a dull key, locked the door behind him. Bear in hand, he journeyed down the empty hall, past gray paintings, pictures. He traveled through a dirty kitchen, a barely lived-in living room. His footsteps were louder, alone. He climbed up the stairs, knees protesting, and stopped before her room, building his strength. He opened the door. The toymaker entered her room. The walls were pink and decorated. His eyes caught on the princess costume, still hanging from its hook on the closet door. He let out a breath, slowly, and walked to her bed, piled on with countless dolls and stuffed animals and toys. He placed the star-speckled space bear down with gentleness and care. It looked at home there, between a lion she would have loved and a little crocodile she would have cherished. The toymaker sat on the bed, quiet. "Happy birthday, my dear," was all he could say.
Wow. A fantastic story. I mean, I read this the very first time you wrote it, and then I read it for when you wrote it for Do the Right Thing. And I mean, I've loved this story all the way since you first thought about it and told me about it. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I just love how hard you really do hit on this sort of darker, more somber tone, and it's just carrying through the entire story. And I love how much attention you give to all of these small actions, to where I can see him pining over this space bear. I can see the care that he is putting into this toy and probably every other toy. And, you know, as always, the ending just kills me. It just stabs me right in the middle of my heart. But I love it for that so much. So
thanks. Yeah, it's been a very, very long time since I originally wrote this. I actually originally wrote this for the spiritual precursor of this podcast, So-Called Writers by Matt and Michael. I think it was my like second submission, even like it was really early on,
Damn.
or something like that, and it made me really, really feel good about writing that I could make something like this, you know?
Yeah.
And it was a lot shorter. It was not nearly as good, you know, the first draft, but that's totally fine. It did have the emotional core, right? And then I think I didn't really do much with it for basically another year, and then I edited a bunch and then I submitted it. And it's that this version of the story is basically that version, with some pretty minor edits, but I still feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a good story all around.
Yeah, I like to think so. There's definitely things that I can like experiment with and you know try out. And when I feel less depressed and have more creative energy, I think I would love to revisit it and really, you know, mess with it and try out different things. Like I have had previously ideas of like really expanding it out and having much more of a backstory with like, you know, how the little girl passed away and stuff like that, of making it more of like a not like a twist ending, and more just of a, you know, a slow sort of tragedy kind of thing, as, you know, how people come to terms with, you know, losing loved ones and how they remember them and things like that. Which this is not that. This is just a polished version of that old story. Yeah. That said, like, I don't know how much I would have changed the like my first Do the Right Thing story. I think I probably wouldn't have changed it that much either. Maybe I would have, you know, polished it up and like maybe changed how I write a couple scenes or something like that. But I don't think I'm quite in a place to like fully overhaul stuff, you know. Yeah. But it's still nice to look back and see, you know, a lot of my editing was very much like small changes on prose level, like just rephrasing things a little bit. But you
didn't mess with the tone or the mood or anything like that.
I mean, even like a lot of times I would keep basically every single word that was originally in that sentence. I would just move them around a little bit and maybe change their tense or something like that. I think it reads a little bit better now than it did originally. But it's pretty. It feels subtle. Like I if you pointed at a paragraph, I probably couldn't remember what I changed in it. So
I see. Well, I mean, so what was it like? I mean, coming back to a piece that you've done in the past and sort of like looking at it with these sort of fresh eyes. Like did you sort of understand what you were going with, or were you sort of confused at the reasoning behind it?
I didn't feel like I did in the moment where you have the whole story and all those other ideas that were once connected to it, you know?
Yeah.
Like the little flash of inspiration, the other ways it could have gone, the other sentences you could have put there instead that you're still debating back and forth on when you're editing.
Yeah.
So I didn't have all of those, but this is a story that I've paid enough attention to that I think like I felt pretty familiar with it. There was definitely some things I remember, like, you know, caring a lot about, some particular phrases. I remember like giving all of the different stuffed animals that they that come up in the story, all of them had names. Okay. And it actually really detracted from the story because it
probably bogged down the prose.
Yeah, it was so like specific, and it's really hard to articulate why it made the story read worse just by having names, but it did, and I tried really hard to give them names and to make it flow well when I did that, and it just was totally the wrong idea. So that's just one little thing. I mean, but there was other stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I see it because I mean, this story does sort of reside in this milky emotional space to where you know what is happening, but you still always feel very distant. Like, I mean, this story is written from a perspective that is very sentimental, but at the same time, it seems that we are looking at the whole picture and not just this one scene, if that makes sense. But also, that's just the sort of tone that you definitely built up to, where we are able to see all of these tiny movements, but because of the way that the prose are written, we're always reading into, well, what is next? What is behind this? Like, why are we in this moment? Why is he making this tone? So, I mean, overall, this story has always done a great job at just retaining its reader. Which is why I would love to ask, because you said basically that right now you aren't in the best place to work on this, which I get. I mean, I've been in the same shoes of just not having that same gusto that you did when you first wrote it. But I guess just spitballing, what would you try and change this story further to maybe have a larger impact overall?
Like, what further edits would I make for this? Like, if I had the creative energy to, like, carry out those bigger edits?
Yeah. Spitballing.
Yeah, good question. So there was one that was, like, the big expansion of that to turn it to probably, like, triple the size and really go through, more of the memories and things like that. I think originally I had a much longer idea about that made a lot more sense, but I think I've forgotten some of the details. But, have that, I think, maybe there'd be some other stuff about making it more, like, present as well. There definitely is, like, a distance in the story, and it's because I am trying to sort of hide the reveal kind of thing, even though it's not, like, really, really hidden. It's still, like, I don't want you to realize right away. Mm-hmm. And so I have to use, like, a really strange, like,
you have to basically beat around the bush.
Yeah, I've got to do a past present tense kind of thing. It's not just that she liked bears. It's she had liked bears, right? The had is important to like make you for everything to remain completely set in the past, but like plausibly it still is that way. We're just like specifically talking about some moment in the past. But like if she's still alive, it could continue, and then it's just like you connect the dots and figure it out later. But so maybe some other stuff to like further isolate that and make it more present while still maintaining that plausible deniability kind of thing. Might have made it better. Yeah, those are the things I have in mind. I don't know. Do you have any suggestions?
Honestly, the only thing that I really think about is that I like this character of the sort of toy maker so much, and I really like the tone that you are using. I just would want more, like I mean, as you said, it would be great if you can go deeper into these sort of flashbacks. It would be great if maybe we could even get a closer technical look at, how is he making these toys and sort of the sort of care that he is putting into it. I mean, overall, it is great. I just feel this story would be as great, if not better, if it was 10 pages long,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't say it, but it would totally make sense to actually just like have a full-on scene in the past, or like all of these little, vignettes of them having told, right, telling. I could show each of them, and actually we go back and we have a little dialogue and a little scene where they go and search the house, and she says some cute stuff and makes you get more attached to her, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really make the ending even more tragic.
Yeah. I mean, really, like this story is sort of set up to where I would expect a story with every toy that we see, and just seeing like, oh, how important has this toy been to the toy maker, and then that all linking back to his daughter. you know? So I don't know. I just feel like that of course would not only add pages, but it would also add this sort of emotional weight that is basically already there, but I feel you could crush us under that, you know? Because, you know, right now I can hold it. I can handle it. But if I were to see the entire journey that this father and a daughter had, and then sort of hinting at the sort of tragic end, that would break someone who were to read this. And I think this story has the potential to do that.
Sure. Yeah, I remember when I did originally write the story, actually, I did get very emotional while I was writing it. Like, I think I did cry while I wrote it the first time, I think. Not this time. Maybe when I was editing it, maybe the like a year ago, but probably not. But maybe. So,
I guess for a final question, looking back over these 100 episodes, 2 years of doing the right thing, are there any sort of tips that, or like tips or tools that you have picked up that you would either want to apply to this story or just in general?
I think it definitely, not necessarily to this story, but I think the thing that has helped me the most, is the just right kind of thing, right? Is the permission I have let myself to just let loose with the words and to go back and fix them later, has really been really good for me to actually get stuff out and to write whatever I felt like writing in a moment, right? You know, some wonderful line comes into my head, just jot it down, even if I can't fit into the scene right now. Yeah. And I'll find a way to fit it in later, because it almost always, I don't know, maybe your subconscious works it out, or maybe like putting the pieces together of a scene is a lot easier than it feels like in the moment. Yeah. But every single time that I just like let myself kind of, not necessarily go on autopilot, but like stop like telling myself to only be on a specific path, stop forcing myself to only do the best work possible. My work actually does turn out really well when I don't try so hard, basically.
I see. So you've sort of fostered that sort of personal creative freedom to where you're not holding yourself back when you put something down on the page.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's an important, skill to learn, is to, don't worry about it so much, Yeah. Like, and to have fun with it, and to enjoy it, I guess. To enjoy it, and just to do the right thing. Just do the right thing. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it.
The hardest part about writing is putting down that first word. As soon as you get that, just start flowing. Just keep writing. If it's trash, you know what? That's fine. Because there are a lot of dumpster divers out here, and they find some gold in that trash. So, you just have to make trash and then dive back in and fix it from there. That's what I've learned, I guess.
I think so too.
Well, all right. I think that is enough about our personal stories, even though they were both fantastic in all ways, shape, or form. And I think it's high time for us to move on into our listener-submitted story section.
That's right. And we also had the challenge for all of y'all to go back to some of your early stories and do some editing, and we got a lot of those. And it was really, really cool to see all the gigantic improvements from people's original stories and what they wrote now.
I know. People are taking leaps and bounds with these stories, and it just does my heart good to be able to read them. So the stories we are going to be talking about this week are by Sithril, Sarah Penguin, Captain Rhino, Calinero985, and Hugo Mangers.
That's right. So first off is Sithril with What's Your Name? And so with these rewrites, I feel like summarizing it might be we already summarized it the first time, but what I do really want to note is the improvements over time.
The changes.
Just to sum up very quickly, here in this scene we have a princess who was chased across the steppe, wakes up all injured, and she starts talking to a child, and they have a little bit of banter, and she is worried about getting captured later on, and she's sort of hiding, and she says that she scared off a wolf, and the kid says that she has wolf's blood, and it's like a cute little interaction, but also maybe some foreshadowing for stuff in the future regarding her character. But so that's the main part of the story. But the original story is a lot less dense. There's many.
It's a very dialogue heavy. I think it's mostly dialogue for a good portion of it,
but in a good way, right?
Yeah.
I really like dialogue. It's almost always beneficial to me. But the dialogue here feels a lot more like natural than it did in the original. It just flows a lot better. It feels more like proper, like a book,
Yeah. It is spaced out with really good prose that is sort of filling out this scene a lot more than it did in the first draft.
So I know Cithril joined about it came from week 68, so less than a year ago, but even then there's been some pretty huge improvements just from that. So I think it's really, really impressive that there was that much change.
Oh yeah, there's huge change. You can really tell, I don't know, maybe the sort of level of confidence, because, it is always good to start off with that solid template, but this story has definitely been elevated from a story that, a sort of typical do the right thing story to something that is a lot more sort of trimmed and a lot more honed. So overall, fantastic job, Cithril. Up next is by Sarah Penguin with Divine Gifts.
So this is a dark story rewritten to be, I think, just better written, but still really, really dark. So there is this the entire village is around a boy who is staring at a dead tiger, and the village is doing this ritual. We get some world building about with the tattoos that they wear, and they're chanting and doing this big ritual, and what is summoned is this goddess that crawls out of a tiger's mouth, and she's somewhat eldritch and horrifying to behold, while also being beautiful. And basically, we understand that somehow this little boy is responsible for killing this tiger, or at the very least is going to be the scapegoated for it. And so he's being gifted to her, and she crawls up to him with her 4 arms and legs, and plunges a hand in his chest, and he just gets brutally murdered, and it's pretty horrible. But then we cut to another scene at the very end, and we are by a pool, in the forest, and the goddess is relaxing, and the boy is alive, except he's actually a tiger now.
Yeah, so, going from the first version to this one, I just feel that this story has a stronger flow to it, and the prose that are being used here are really building out this culture and this scene a lot more. Going from the first version to this version, you really get the sense and the tone of this ritual. When the woman crawled out of the tiger, my skin started to crawl, because it was, as you said, at the same time gross but also sort of beautiful in this strange way. And I still do like the ending. I think it's very interesting that he turns into this tiger, but I think in this other version it is handled a lot better. And overall, I can tell that a lot more time was taken with these edits. That, it just really worked to sort of fill out this scene and give us a stronger sense of exactly what's happening here. So really great job.
And Sarah Penguin, and amongst many, many others, has been one of those people that came back again and again. And so, yeah, it's really awesome to see the, improvement over time, over such a long amount of time, that they've had all this practice over and over again. And I think that's really awesome.
Definitely. Well, all right. Up next is by Captain Rhino with Damaged Goods.
Yeah, and this is also a very, very early story. Actually, the same episode as Sarah Penguin's, episode 20, so really old, August 2019. Thank you, Captain Rhino, for pulling out the date for us.
Making us feel old.
Yeah, absolutely. And the change here is pretty remarkable. So this one's called Damaged Goods, and we have just a kind of like asshole of a guy going into the woods. He has a punching bag there, and he's laying low away from the mobsters, right? And he's just beating up this punching bag, getting all pissed off, and we're sort of getting more of his character and the kind of person he is by who he envisions that he's punching and who he's mad at, what parts of the world, and at the very end he causes some self-harm by breaking some bones in his hand as he punches his bag, and then he trips and falls on his face in a rather like embarrassing, ignoble accident. And not that he's dead, but just embarrassing.
Yeah. So, I mean, this story has definitely seen one of the biggest changes that I think this week. I mean, a whole character was cut. It was the neighbor. And really, I think that was a really strong choice, because instead of the story really focusing on the situation, we are able to really build out this character far better than he was built out in the first version. I mean, we get a sense as to what his deal is, why he's so angry, and just like seeing that this sort of anger that he's putting in to this bag is like sort of bouncing back at him. So yeah, I think this choice to really focus in on this one character and really making that voice super strong is serving to make this piece overall a lot more compelling. So great job.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Up next is by Calinero985 with Peer Review.
So I remember the story, and I remember really, really liking it from episode 18. So I think that's one of the very, very first episodes where we actually had responses, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
But it was a really, really good initial idea or initial story, and then they just polished it up some more here. So in this one, Caleb, a half-elf, has gone to the office of Professor Price, and it's we very much get a sense of how racist the campus is toward fantastical creatures, and it's a lot of like scientific racism and things like that, except it's magical, tinted. There's a bunch of dead magical creatures around the room, and there's even a shrunken head of a half-elf, because they were once just considered inhuman magical creatures. And Caleb himself is a half-elf, so this is obviously very disconcerting. But he's presenting his thesis to Professor Price, and he feels really, demeaned and diminished. And Professor Price says that, no, your thesis is garbage, it's weak, it's ridiculous. The notion that all magical sentients are... their magic is equal in power, they're just different, just cultural differences. It's obviously wrong and ridiculous and sentimental, and he gets like insulted in other ways. And so in the moment, as this has escalated, Caleb uses his ancestors' magic that has been forbidden, and then entrances Professor Price to give him approval as Caleb walks out, more worried about the future than he was even when he went in, but having done something to fight back, basically.
Yeah, so I think the biggest changes from the first version to this one is just, as you said, polish. This definitely does follow a much stronger through line, and I think the sort of prejudice that is being talked about here is a lot stronger within this version, so that when he does go and talk to Professor Price, you really do feel how he is definitely being treated much worse than his human counterpart. So yeah, I mean, overall, I just really like how this story is a lot more clean. You know, everything is just pushing it forward and forward. And there's great sort of imagery. The prose are very strong, and I do like the ending to where it's not leaving in such a sort of triumphant place, but in a much worse place than the story began in. So overall, really great job.
Yeah, one of the things that I would have liked to, I think, see the entrancing or just have that moment draw out just like another paragraph, I think, because it passes by rather quickly for such like a momentous, like, you know, heart-stopping moment is what it feels like it should be. But yeah, I really, really like the story.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right, our final story for this week is by Hugo Mangers with Mars Boy.
This one is not a rewrite, which makes sense as Hugo Mangers. This is one of their... They joined very recently, so thank you for joining, and thank you for being here for episode 100. So it is Mars Boy's 25th birthday, Martel Venson. He was born on Mars, the first person born on Mars. And we kind of get like some subtle, you know, introductions of dystopia as we talk about how like the way that people got on Mars was basically like a Willy Wonka ticket by Elon Musk, and the money on Mars is also called Musk's, which is also just like gross kind of sounding. But the main, you know, conflict is that our Mars Boy was basically under like a Truman Show, you know, perpetual reality show as the first person to be born on Mars. Not that he didn't know about it, but he was constantly followed by cameras. Everything was publicized constantly, and he's never really had like a genuine connection with anyone. Even when he went to Earth, he couldn't escape from it, and it's like his life has been ruined by this endless attention. And at this very end, he takes finally an act to himself. He gets his freedom by walking out into the bare atmosphere of Mars and doing something horrifying for the TV crew to watch.
Yeah, this story is definitely a trip. I mean, overall, I really do like the sort of upbeat tone that this story starts off in, but then as it continues, you really do start really feeling for Mars Boy, basically. And I love this world building. I really do like how it is taking certain things that are happening within our world, and then sort of predicting what the future could possibly be. And I think the ending is really sad. It is definitely impactful. I think overall the only thing that is sort of taking me out of it is that in the last two paragraphs we get a point of view shift, which didn't really feel terribly prompted. So I think maybe like a line break or something else there could help to sort of facilitate those last two paragraphs, because they are really strong pieces to this story.
Yeah, I agree. As it goes from first person to third person, yeah, just putting a line there I think would have worked well. Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, it is very obvious that the last part is during a totally different time. You know, after they got their freedom, or, you know, after they're choosing to be truly free. So yeah, I just think a line break there could make it peachy keen. But overall, it's really great, and I love the the sentiment here, along with just sort of how you are building out this Martian world. So really great job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. Thank you so much to everyone who left a story. Thanks to you, it's doing our heart good. So I want to give a big old do the right thing thank you to everyone who did submit a story. So, thank you very much to Cithro.
Thank you to Sarah Penguin.
Thank you, Captain Rhino.
Thank you, Calanero985.
And thank you, Hugo Mangers. If you want to be like all of these wonderful writers and submit your story to Do the Right Thing, you can do that by going to /r/Do the Right Thing. All you have to do is sit down for 30 minutes and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
Yeah, absolutely. And the place to find out the words as soon as they come out would be to get notifications for us on Twitter, which is @RightThingCast. You can also send us an email at rightthingcast@gmail.com and just tell us whatever. You know, you could send us a cute cat picture or something. I don't know. You could just write down "do the right thing." Just write down the words "do the right thing" on a piece of paper and send it to us, and we will count that as fan art and we'll put it on the website.
Yes.
No promises.
And of course, if you want to support us and everyone else in this fantastic Doof Media family, you can do that by donating to the Doof Media Patreon. All you have to do is donate $10 or more per month to get access to exclusive bonus content.
That's right. And again, I want to put the reminder out there that the Doof Media Discord is now open to anyone who wants to join. There is now no Patreon requirement to join the Discord. So just go to doofmedia.com/Discord to be able to join. Or if you are already on the Discord, you can tell your friends to join, whoever else, even if they don't listen to Doof Media. Although that would, I mean, there's only Doof Media channels, so that would be a little awkward. But like, I guess they could just like pop in there when we talk about like a movie or something that they've seen, and then they could be like, "Oh, I haven't listened to the podcast, but I like that movie," and everyone will be like, "I like that movie too," you know, and it would be like a little, like they would be able to like hang out and stuff, which might be they might like that. So you could do that.
Yes, you can. So, Alexandra, please tell me, what else is happening in Doof Media right now?
As always, there's so much going on in Doof Media, so much that I gotta go look it up because I don't remember.
Great.
So of course there is all the wonderful shows on the Doof Media Network going on right now. I do want to plug the March Madness tournament that we have going on right now, off of all of the movies that the Doofcast has reviewed over the past year. I think there's actually 64 movies on there right now that are competing. So please go on the website. It's like on the front page. I think it's got its own little tab. And vote for whoever you want to win in the various contests so we can find out what the best movie is. The one best movie. Not even just out of the ones that the Doofcast covered. Just the best one. What is the best movie? And of course there's other stuff going on. I think this weekend we are doing our Doof and Chill available to, I think, $5 patrons and above. Or really anyone that's that's a paying member of the Discord. I forget exactly what we're doing. I think we're doing a Jackbox, but that may change at the last minute. We'll see. And of course, next week is the Doof Media Book Club covering Reaper Man by Terry Pratchett. So that's, I think, I don't remember if that's the first Discworld book, but one of the first anyway. Or an entry point, I suppose, of basically one of the biggest fantasy series that for some reason is not actually that talked about amongst non-mainstream fantasy people, which is kind of wild to me though, that it gets like forgotten like that.
Yeah.
Even though it's gigantic.
Well, alright. I think before we move on into next week's words, I have to say that I am so thankful to not only be a lovely host on this podcast, but to be blessed to make 100 episodes that y'all seem to really enjoy. I mean, when we started this, and I don't want to speak for you, but I did not think we would make it this far. Like I just could never see myself doing 100 episodes of anything. So yeah, I'm just very blessed to be here, to be able to just share the great joys of writing, and I'm very hopeful that somewhere along this very long journey, you did the right thing and have become a better writer and maybe even person because of it.
Yeah, I was definitely worried at the beginning that this would like fall apart. So I'm very glad that we beat those odds. I'm betting that most podcasts like stop after like 5 episodes or something.
Yes,
I heard something like that. But yeah, no, we've been going strong for a really long time, and I think it's been really good just to practice not only writing and to, think about writing. But also literally just talking. And I want to thank all of y'all that are listening, and everyone who's written the story especially, because that's really what has made this so worth it. That knowing that people are listening and benefiting from it, and like every single story is like work that y'all put into. Not okay. I almost said to show your appreciation. I understand. That's not why I write stories. It's a sign. It's a votive offering toward these podcasting gods. No, but like that's how it makes me feel. That it like shows how much. I don't know. It's really cool anyway. All right, like I know y'all are doing it for yourselves, which is the correct. Yeah, and it's just really really cool, and I feel really appreciated seeing y'all write stories and stuff, and like I've said before, and like I say in the first episode, that I started doing this for so-called writers, right? And that's what really got me into writing, and it makes me really really happy that we've been able to do this for so many other people. I actually don't remember. We should have written down all the unique usernames of all the people who have submitted to us, just so we could know how many unique individual people have written for us, but I just know that it's a lot, that's just kind of wild to me. Like it's at least like more than 30 people. I don't know how many, but it's more than 30 people, right?
30, yeah.
And like so many people have like gotten into writing that way. I think it's awesome.
So I think the best thing about having such a benchmark like episode 100 is that from here we can just evolve and keep getting better. So please, if you have any suggestions of what you might want to see from Do the Right Thing, or just us in general, please don't be shy. Send us it. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Because we both just want to make this podcast as good and enjoyable as possible for y'all, but also for us. So please don't be shy. Let us know.
Yeah, I'm trying to post the episode links themselves on the subreddit, so y'all can leave comments there to the actual episode themselves. I can't remember if I did that last episode, but I did the episode before, so win some, you lose some. But anyway, yeah. So give us some feedback. But anyway, let's roll in and find out what the next week's words are.
Yes, it's enough of all this sobby, we're thankful, thank you stuff. It's time to get down to the concrete evidence, the reason why we are here, which is next week's words.
Yeah. And the challenge for the next week, as it's episode 101, is new beginnings. So I'm excited for that. Also, I think we are likely to have Scott on, although related to new beginnings, he and his wife are about to have their baby. Amazing. As in like it might happen that week. So hopefully he's not going to be doing it from the emergency room or the not emergency room. What's the specifically labor room?
Oh yeah, it's the baby room.
The baby room. Yeah. No, he's not. If he would not do that, and I really would hope that he would not do that.
I mean, hey, maybe if you want to give birth to a really strong podcaster, put a mic.
That's right.
In their face.
Yeah,
as soon as
that's an omen. Exactly. Yeah. You could do a podcast on that. Just interview babies as they come out,
as they're screaming.
It's like comedians in cars getting coffee.
Yeah.
Except it's
babies in hospital.
Podcasters in a hospital talking to babies coming out of the wombs. That's the name of the show.
Somehow that doesn't have the same ring to it, but I get
it's on ABC.
ABC? Yeah, it seems like an ABC show.
That was a baby joke because ABCD.
Oh,
and alphabet.
I get it because babies are dumb.
Yeah, that's the message of that joke. What are the words for next week?
Yeah, so the words are clay, feeling, doctor, and slump. Okay, interesting words.
Slump. So the first word, clay, which is a material that is used to build houses, but also sculptures. It was often in myths. It's what humans were first made out of. We sculpted out of clay. It's also, I guess, a color. I don't know.
Sure.
A feeling, which is
it's a feeling
to get a sensation in some way, which can be an emotional one,
physical,
or it can be a touch kind of feeling. A doctor, which is someone who takes care of other people in a medicinal fashion, and someone who can also be a doctor of philosophy or some other non-medicinal way.
A doctor in some sort of field.
And then a slump, which is a depression of some sort, which can be both physical, as in like a slump of like a dip in the land, basically.
Someone is slumped over.
Exactly, or it can be an emotional slump, right? So a lot of options here.
Yeah, definitely. So much. So, Alexandra, what story are you going to bring to us next week?
So I am going to go back to the beginning, the creation of mankind, as I said, and talk about how this goddess took clay. She had a feeling that this clay was like alive or something, and so she took it and she made it into little people, and they started walking around, and but they were all slumped over. So she made a little doctor, little clay man, a little doctor with a little lab coat, a doctor's coat, and he was there, and he made them not slumped over, and he like straightened them up and stuff.
Okay.
And that is how our spines are straight.
Oh, you know what? That is a good explanation. Better than most books I've read. That's pretty good.
Side note, I had a book of myths. I had a big book of myths as a kid. And there's a lot of creation myths, right? A lot of them to do with clay. I remember two of them that specifically describe why so many people look fucked up.
Really? Is it because they fucked up when they were making the clay?
Yeah. Yes. There was one where it was, I think it's a Yoruba myth, where the creation god that was making the people, he got really drunk off of palm wine. And so the first ones looked great, and then as he got more drunk, they got, some of them had long legs and short arms, right? And then it was accompanied with a little drawing of people that were all, differently proportioned. And there was something about, like, he felt terrible about it, but they were happy, so it was okay. Something like that. And then another one where it's a Chinese clay creation myth. It's just, I'm sure there's a word for that. Just like probably anthropogenesis or something.
Sounds right.
Where she took the clay of the Yellow River, and she started making people, and it was wonderful, but it was taking a really long time to do it, right? Yeah, so she got a rope, and she just soaked the rope in the clay, right? And then she just sort of like shook it in the air, and then wherever the drops fell were more people, but they were not as nice looking as the ones that she handmade. So
that is very strange how like that differs from like other like myths, because in those it seems that it's sort of like a inherent hierarchy within people, how some people are just made better than others. But in like other stories, like I think within the Christian telling of it, everyone was made the exact same because God took the time just to make all of them the exact same out of clay. So that's interesting.
What's your story?
Oh yeah, so my story is going to be Harley Quinn fan fiction. I have been recently watching the TV show. It's really good, a lot better than I thought it would be. So my fanfiction is going to be about Clayface. And within this one, he is getting the feeling that no one likes him because he only talks about acting, even though he isn't really that good of an actor. So he decides to really try and unclay his self. So he goes to see a doctor, and this doc basically says, "Yo, there is nothing that I can really do for you, but if you take these steroids, maybe it can speed up your body's processes and make you better." So he starts taking them, and as he starts taking them, he slowly realizes, oh, I just keep getting bigger. And then he also gets more angry. And then at the same time, he gets even more dumb because of all of the steroids put into his body. Well, after a certain point, he becomes a threat to everyone else on Harley Quinn's crew. So they have to fight him, and then they shoot him in the head, and then he dies, slumped over, and no more Clayface in the TV show.
Or maybe I'm Clayface.
Are you Clayface? Okay, honestly though, that's a fantastic power. Being able to turn into anything.
Look. Shapeshifting's my thing. All right, I need it. Look, as a non-binary person, I hardly want to be human, right?
Yeah.
And if I was, I better be shifting in form constantly without, ever anchoring on any particular aspect whatsoever. And I mean, I don't even want to have the same number of fingers by, my morning and evening.
Yeah.
Like, I want to have, like, I want to be a literalized version of the original Sphinx's riddle.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I want to have 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and then 3 legs at night. That's what I want.
Well, I mean, like, honestly, if you're a shapeshifter, why would you waste your time on human forms? Like,
right?
What is the furthest limit you can shapeshift? Like, could you shapeshift yourself into your idea of like a 4th dimensional being? And if so, why don't you just do that? Or like, hey, why could you turn into your favorite bottle of beer? Like, I mean, what are the limits? Why be human when you can be metahuman? Homo superior, some might say.
And going beyond the corporeal form of humanity is the right thing to do. Do the right thing to do. Goodbye. See you in 101.